Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, where today we have a bit of a ruffle stomp for you. This, in the German Tier 10 destroyer, the Elbing, is Commodore Pixel. He's in a three-man division, and unusually is the only member of the three-man division to not be in a fancy pants premium. Not exactly premiums, but, well, for example, one of his division mates, Stalker JS, is in the Polish Tier 10 Premium Gdansk destroyer, which is sort of a Polish version of the French Mogador. And his other division mate is in the Italian Tier 10 battleship, the Sicilia. Now, this is the first time I've even seen a Sicilia. I certainly haven't seen a replay with them. That thing is technically not a premium. You can grind it out in the Research Bureau. It's an Italian battleship that comes with, I can't even say this with a straight face, 16 15-inch guns. Now, admittedly, 15 inch isn't exactly large caliber for Tier 10. I mean, they're not small caliber guns by any stretch of the imagination. But you first start getting ships with 15-inch guns down at Tier 6. The Warspite, for example. But still, they'll overmatch 27mm of plating, and it's got 16 of them. I mean, I can't wait to see a replay with that thing. Although that's going to have to wait for another day, because the star of today's show, here in the Elbing, which is a tech tree destroyer, is Commodore Pixel. Although I have to admit, when the Elbing, I mean, it's been around at least a year now, but when they were first introducing it, a lot of us were looking at the stats of this thing and thinking, what the hell were you thinking, Wargaming? Because it's a destroyer with absolutely terrible stealth. I mean, the base surface detection range on this thing is just slightly more than 8 kilometers. It's a huge, easy-to-hit target. It's basically the size of a light cruiser. It's not fast, with a base top speed of 36.5 knots, although it does get access to an engine boost. And it's got a really sluggish rudder, which means that it maneuvers poorly and has an absolutely huge turning circle. So the general consensus of opinion, before we actually started playing this thing, was that it was an utter disaster just waiting to happen. I mean, that combination of factors, the poor stealth, the pedestrian speed, and the sluggish rudder and large turning circle, just made this thing look like light cruiser bait. Just waiting to get absolutely ripped apart by light cruiser 6-inch high explosive shells. And then we actually played it. And while everything that I just said is true, the thing about the Elbing, it's not really a destroyer. In fact, the whole design was based around a reconnaissance cruiser concept, the basic idea being that they wanted to develop something that, while technically a destroyer, would actually be able to hold its own against enemy light cruisers and be able to operate independently on the high seas. Enemy Shimakaze there making a run on the U-4501, and as long as he's focused on that, Commodore Pixel is perfectly safe. Because the other thing about the Elbing is it's not really, despite its impressive armament, this thing actually has light cruiser armament. It has 6 150mm guns. But despite that, this is not for killing other destroyers. This thing's for taking down enemy cruisers. Shimakaze forced to smoke up, and that's absolutely fine, because it means that Commodore Pixel can close in, and the U-4501 manages to escape intact. The enemy team have already suffered their first casualty, by the way. They have lost a destroyer. Both teams have one cap circle. Montana's sending some depth charge attack planes after the U-4501, but Commodore Pixel has disabled his AA guns, so any tracer fired at the depth charge attack planes aren't going to give his position away. Unfortunately, that means the U-4501 is just going to have to fend for itself for the moment, and that was superb timing. He got spotted right as the Shimakaze had already launched its torpedoes. The Shimakaze, of course, apparently never got the memo about smoke screens being torpedo magnets, and there's the enemy team's second casualty and Commodore Pixel's first kill. And of course, with the Shimakaze dead, he's no longer spotted, and he's able to use the Shimakaze smoke screen to get some sneaky hits on the Montana over there. He even manages to set a fire before switching back to the armor piercing. Hang on a second, a destroyer firing armor piercing at a battleship? Yeah, very much so. See, we've talked about all the bad things about the Elbing. The really bad stealth, the kind of pedestrian speed, and the crappy turning circle and sluggish rudder. Now it's time to talk about the good stuff, and primarily we're talking here about the guns. This is no ordinary destroyer. As well as being the size of a light cruiser, it also has light cruiser guns. This ship is armed with 6 150mm guns in 3 triple turrets. The high explosive shells are kind of meh, which is why this thing doesn't really do that well at fighting enemy destroyers. But the armor-piercing shells are very spicy indeed. The guns have a 13.5 kilometer range, they are very accurate, they have improved penetration angles with the armor-piercing shells, and they actually have better penetration. You might want to strap yourself down for this. These 150mm or not quite 6-inch guns fire armor-piercing shells that actually have better penetration values than the Tier 10 Hindenburg Heavy Cruiser's 8-inch armor-piercing shells. This destroyer is a cruiser killer, and it's aided in that role by a couple of important factors. The first being that it is a destroyer and therefore does not have a citadel, unlike enemy cruisers, which do. So if you're in a light cruiser engaged in a duel with an Elbing, you can't citadel it, but it can citadel you, and it will. It also has a lot of hit points to trade. 34,000 with the relevant captain skills, although it doesn't get access to a repair party. But that's a lot of hit points for a destroyer. Commodore Pixel's telling the... oh yes, I see why now. He's telling the U-4501 there to surface and heal up. And that does seem like pretty good advice. Oh, he's just been pinged by the enemy submarine again. This is fine. I mean, another one of the things that makes this ship good is the long range of the guns, and the accuracy, and the high velocity of the shells, which means that you can comfortably sit at around 10 to 13 kilometers away from a target, raining down extremely accurate and damaging fire on them, and they're going to struggle to do the same to you, because while you're not the most maneuverable at that kind of range, somebody shoots back at you, you get enough warning to be able to dodge. And if they're not shooting back at you, well, jackpot. Of course, if they are shooting back at you, or even worse, pursuing you, another advantage that this ship has is that 2/3 of the firepower are in the rear. It's got 2 rear turrets, only 1 at the front. So you are able to kite away while still bringing the majority of your firepower to bear on whoever it is who's pursuing you. And if you do end up having to fight enemy destroyers, which is definitely not what this thing is best at, but if you do, you're not entirely without some advantages, because while the high explosive shells are not fantastic, meaning that even with a relatively fast 7.1 second reload on these 150mm guns, you're going to be doing mediocre high explosive damage per minute, but you're actually able to weather the return high explosive fire from most destroyer caliber guns quite well, because while most tier 10 destroyers, and tier 9 and tier 8 destroyers for that matter, are covered with 19mm of plating, and the Elbing is as well at the bows and the stern, midships, the Elbing actually has 25mm, which makes it functionally immune to most high-tier destroyer, most, not all, high-tier destroyer, oh, and there's a second kill, but basically any destroyer caliber high explosive shells, or almost any destroyer caliber high explosive shells, that hit the midsection of this ship, right from the bridge all the way back to those rear turrets, is probably just going to shatter without actually doing any damage, even though it can still set fires. 25mm might not sound like a lot, but remember, that's tier 8 cruiser armor plating. Actually, in some cases, that's tier 10 cruiser armor plating. Actually, in some cases, that's tier 10 battleship armor plating. Yes, Schlieffen, we're looking at you. Although there are also tier 10 light cruisers who wish they had 25mm of plating. The British light cruisers, for example, ships like the Minotaur and the Neptune. But those are the kind of ships that are probably going to be the biggest threat to the Elbing, because they don't get high explosive ammunition, and they also get improved penetration angles on their armor piercing. Note that Commodore Pixel, who's now smoking up while shooting at the Schlieffen over there, left the cap circle in order to do this. And of course he was the one spotting the Schlieffen at the point where he smoked up, so now he's got nothing to shoot at. He's just launched his torpedoes. Now don't worry too much about the cap circle, because the U-4501 who's behind him has surfaced and is flipping the cap. The Schlieffen, however, is going to be dead before the torpedoes get there. He's going to be dead long before the torpedoes get there. It's time to talk about the Elbing's torpedoes. They're really, really slow. You know the Italian Tier 6 premium light cruiser, the Duca d'Aosta? Oh, I think we're about to see the Schlieffen go down. Who's going to get the kill? Oh, well, it wasn't Commodore Pixel, but it was a member of his division, so that's good. We're keeping the kills in the family. But yes, back to the Italian Tier 6 light cruiser, the Duca d'Aosta. Its torpedoes have a speed of 51 knots. I mean, there are memes about that ship. Oh, Commodore Pixel trying to slip back there into the cap circle, but the U-4501 had it covered. Yes, they make memes about the Duca d'Aosta's torpedoes. They say that it doesn't launch torpedoes, it drops mines because they're so slow. The Elbing's torpedoes are slower, 50 knots. It does get a lot of them though. It has 2 launchers with 5 torpedoes each, so it can put 10 of them in the water. They have good range. They actually have exactly the same range as the guns, 13.5 kilometers, and they hit pretty hard. More importantly, they do have a very fast 71-second reload. But they are slow. You could launch these torpedoes at a target, then write a letter to the captain of the ship that you're attempting to torpedo, informing him that there are torpedoes on the way, and he would get the letter before he saw the torpedoes. Anyway, Schlieffen down. That's 4 kills so far amongst the members of this division. Slightly more than half of the total enemy casualties. Oh, an Amalfi enemy cruiser. Please be broadside. Please be... Oh, he's broadside. Oh, cover your eyes, children. Cruelty to light cruisers. Is the Amalfi a light cruiser or a heavy cruiser? I can't remember. Doesn't matter. He's dead. Double Citadel. That's what this ship is for. Oh, here comes the Montana. 3 kilometers away. Okay, watch this. 3 kilometers, he's launched the torpedoes. Wait for it. Montana's 2.7 kilometers away. Wait for it. Might have to wait for it a bit longer. There they go. And there it is. Yeah, they took their time getting there, didn't they? But once they got there, they did get the job done. So, kill number 4 on the Mighty Monty, and now a Stalingrad. Oh, hang on a second. I mean, he could start shooting at the Stalingrad now, but that's a Stalingrad. That's an extremely heavily armoured cruiser. Now, he could start shooting at the Stalingrad right now, but there was a Catalunya spotted heading for the gap between those 2 islands, and the Catalunya is not an extremely heavily armoured cruiser. So he waits. You can see he's thinking about shooting at the Stalingrad, wondering what the Catalunya's up to. He starts slowing. He doesn't want to miss that window of opportunity as he waits patiently. There it is. Oh dear, this is going to leave a mark. Shots out. Oh, disappointingly, no citadels, but 7-second reload. Shots out again. Launches the torpedoes because, hey, you never know. Still no citadels. 3rd time lucky. Here we go. Wow, where are the citadels when you need them? Well, the armor-piercing damage per minute on this thing is so good, you don't actually need them. And there's the Kraken Unleashed. And then, just to prove once again that you shouldn't be playing World of Warships if you can't take a joke, he switches his fire to the extremely heavily armoured Stalingrad, and there are the citadels! Because of course they are. I did tell you this thing was going to be a bit of a ruffle stomp. There are only 2 enemies left, and the team have 3 of the 4 cap circles, although at one point they were actually trailing, both on kills and points, and they didn't have a cap advantage. Although they weren't that far behind. I mean, this was never going to qualify as an episode of A Game of Throws. But he's got 5 kills in the Kraken Unleashed. There are 2 remaining. He has lost a member of his division, but the Sicilia is still up and running. That thing has... Did I mention that thing has 16 385mm guns? Pretty sure I covered it. Oh, they've just taken a casualty. That's unfortunate. The Takau's gone down. He doesn't have the engine boost running. He must be running a speed flag, though, because he's going faster than 35.5 knots. I mean, you know, it's not slow. It's just not especially fast. 37.9 knots in a straight line with a speed flag. He's flipping the cap now. And he's probably slow enough that he's actually going to be able... I mean, he's not the only one here in the cap circle, but he's certainly assisting. There's the Stalingrad. There's the cap. The enemy team are doomed. 2 ships left, no cap circles. They're trailing by 300 points. Sicilia's raining hellfire down on the Stalingrad. Come on, Stalingrad, heal up. Don't die, don't die. We need you to stay alive for at least another, about 5 to 10 seconds. Sicilia's switched to the semi-armor piercing. Looks like Stalingrad's bow tanking. And you know what that means, don't you? It means the Stalingrad is giving broadside. Not to the Sicilia, but he's giving broadside to Commodore Pixel. Shots out. Boom! Headshot. More citadels. Kill number 6. That just leaves the enemy submarine. It's HMS Salmon. Oh, hello. Torpedoes. I think we know where you are. And of course, as the last member of his team, if the submarine wants to spot anything, he's going to have to surface. And he doesn't want to do that. Not with depth charge attack planes from the Sicilia ready to go, and Commodore Pixel here closing in the Elbing, because, of course, as a destroyer, he does have depth charges. And with nobody spotting for the submarine, why not close in for a depth charge attack? Come on, where are you? We know you can't be far. We just saw your torpedoes. Come on, launch some torpedoes at somebody so we... Oh, there they are. Follow those torpedoes, boys. We've got him. Not spotted. There he is, which means he's at periscope depth at least. And we know we're heading in the right direction. Oh, and he's on the surface because he's got no consumables left, which means that's a dead submarine. That is game over. Sadly, no 7th kill for Commodore Pixel, but at least it went to a division mate. So, you know, once again, we're keeping it in the family. And that's going to be important because of, well, look at all of the awards. With 6 kills and 180,000 damage, as well as the High Caliber and Kraken Unleashed, the division also earned General Offensive for destroying at least 3 ships of different types. In fact, they got that twice. Shoulder to Shoulder for doing at least 20% hit points worth of damage to at least 10 enemy ships. Strike Team for doing at least 50% of the base hit points in damage of all of the enemy ships. And finally, Coordinated Attack for sinking at least 7 enemies, when they in fact sank 9, which isn't bad. Commodore Pixel in the Elbing, the Tier 10 tech tree, so anybody can get it, German destroyer, that really acts a lot more like a light cruiser. It's very much a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Commiserations to the Stalingrad and the enemy team, 1200 base XP on a defeat, that's really got to suck. But huzzah for Commodore Pixel, who, along with his division, had a cracking domination battle here on the Haven map. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.